In a land called Chola, two families lived side by side, the Richmonds and the Portons. Chola was a kingdom with vast natural resources, but not everyone could reap its bounties equally. The story of these two families encapsulated the tale of why Chola was a land of stark contrast between the rich and the poor. Long ago, the Richmonds' ancestors had participated in wars and explorations, accumulating treasures and lands. They built huge castles and invested in businesses, while the Portons had always been simple farmers. The Richmonds were close to the ruling monarchy, and they benefited from this association, growing richer and more powerful with each generation. The economic system in Chola was primarily capitalist. While it created innovation and growth, it also widened the gap between the two families. The Richmonds had access to advanced farming equipment, technology, and skilled labor, making their harvests plentiful year after year. In contrast, the Portons, without capital, relied on manual labor and could barely make ends meet. Chola was rich in resources like gold and oil. The Richmonds, through their connections, acquired licenses to mine these resources. The Portons could only watch as their wealthy neighbors grew wealthier. Education played a significant role too. The Richmond children attended the best schools in the kingdom, learning skills that would secure them high-paying jobs. The Porton children had to make do with whatever education they could afford, often sacrificing school to work on the fields. The Richmonds also had the luxury of inheritance, as wealth was passed down from one generation to another. The Portons, however, could only pass down their debts and their aging tools. Political systems in Chola lacked transparency and fairness. The Richmonds, who were influential, often got tax cuts and other economic benefits. They even engaged in corrupt practices with little to no consequences, amassing wealth in dubious ways. Society in Chola placed a higher value on wealth and individual achievement. People looked up to the Richmonds and aspired to be like them, reinforcing the idea that wealth was a measure of one's worth. The Portons were often disregarded or looked down upon. Globalization finally made its way to Chola, and the Richmonds seized the opportunity to expand their businesses overseas. They partnered with companies from other kingdoms, multiplying their wealth. The Portons, on the other hand, found that their local produce couldn't compete with the cheap goods flooding in from other countries. At times, luck played a part too. The Richmonds happened to discover a rare gemstone mine on their property, multiplying their fortune overnight. The Portons, however, were struck by a natural calamity that destroyed their year's harvest. Additionally, some discriminatory practices in Chola made it harder for people like the Portons to break the cycle of poverty. They belonged to a community that had historically been marginalized, making it even more challenging for them to secure loans or get fair treatment. Thus, the tale of the Richmonds and the Portons explained why Stratopia was a land of such disparities. While both families lived under the same sun and moon, the stars they were born under were worlds apart. The Richmonds lived a life of abundance and opportunities, while the Portons faced a lifetime of struggle and limitations. It was said that the wise men and women in the Cholan Council were seeking to address these disparities. They knew that for Chola to truly thrive, opportunities must be made available for all, and the cycle that perpetuated inequality had to be broken. And so the story of Chola continues, as it ponders on ways to bridge the gap between the Richmonds and the Portons, a challenge that many lands face, a puzzle that many are still trying to solve.